Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we're talking about the secret sauce to growing your business. That's right, people. We're talking about people, how to connect with people, build lasting relationships. You can't do this alone, I promise you. And the proof is in the pudding because I can't even do this podcast alone. I have a very special guest, Sonny Moyers. Welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
Well, Brandon, thank you very much for having me on. I hope I can help you, and most importantly, I can help your audience be more successful.
I know you will, because we're talking about building relationships, connections, lasting relationships, all important things in business. And quite honestly, one of the things I see people take for granted a lot of times, they think relationships are people and people are disposable. And I'm not a huge fan. So I'd love to hear what does this mean for you? And then we'll, of course, dive in. But building lasting relationships and connection, what is that for you?
Well, in the real estate business, it's particularly important in that when you meet someone, I don't look at people as qualifying them for whether they're going to buy or sell a home. I look at them as I'm qualifying them for having a long-term relationship with me. Because, I'm older, but I'm assuming you're in your 30s.
You got it.
All right. Well, when you meet somebody, like if I met you and you needed some help in real estate, I look at it as I'm trying to build a relationship with you that will last over 20 years. In fact, I have some clients that I've been helping them with their real estate needs, their families for 25, 30 years. So I'm not really looking at someone as a prospect for buying a home or selling a home. I'm looking at them as, do I connect with them in such a way that I can be of value and service to them over a long period of time? And what that makes is Brandon becomes very, very valuable to me, not only as a person, but as a long-term client. For example, most people buy or sell a home every 5 to 7 years. So in your lifetime, Brandon, you might own 5 more homes, and you'll need to sell the homes you're in. And you also have a sphere of influence. And as a podcast host, I'm sure you know a lot of people. So if you refer people to me and from your sphere of influence, I could have 15 or 20 transactions with you and your sphere of influence over the next 25 or 30 years. And 25 transactions is a lot of revenue for my company. But more importantly, it's meeting a lot of great people. Because when you recommend someone to me, they come in what I would say is warm. They come in having a positive position rather than me having to convince them that I'm a good guy or a good realtor or whatever the case might be. So relationships are everything in real estate. In fact, I think many of our business was built on having long-term relationships with people who wanted to refer their friends, family, their sphere of influence because they wanted to share the great services we provide with others. So interpersonal relationship management, building that relationship with you where you trust us. And it starts with convincing you through action and words that my primary goal is to help you and put you first in all matters. And I never want to be perceived as a product salesperson. I want to be perceived as a consultant to you, as an advisor to you, as a trusted advocate for you. And so that's the difference between what I do and what a typical real estate agent might do. I don't look at transactions. I look at people, relationships, and long-term relationships in my business.
Yeah, it's such a great outlook too. And when you put it in perspective, it can be hard for some people to zoom out and say, you look at me as a 20-year potential relationship. And I may never do business with you, but like you said, I could refer people who do. So the benefit of that relationship, whereas most people would say, oh, Brandon's in North Carolina, Sonny's in Texas, those two never have anything in common, don't need to know each other anymore, you don't know what could come from that. And that's kind of the road I see most people take, especially with the internet and social media the way it is now. You
Mhm.
you don't know what sort of a fingerprint you're going to leave on somebody, and to
Well,
just brush off all relationships is such a dangerous way to be. And
yeah.
Sonny, I'm curious to hear your take on this. Quite frankly, personally, I believe real estate agents are some of the best and the worst at building relationships. And what I mean by that, I'm sure you know that the local networking event where the real estate agent walks in, slaps a business card on you, and walks away. I mean, that's obviously one way to do it. And then there's people like you who focus on building relationships. But talk to me about that difference and what you see, even in your own industry.
Well, your comment fits right in with a chapter from my book called The Reverse Sales Process. And what that basically says is you don't go to a meeting like a Chamber of Commerce meeting or a networking event and have your spiel ready to give. Let me put it this way. When you go to those events, there might be 25 or 30 people there. And all those 25 or 30 people have salesperson written across their heads. And they all act in a similar way. They all have their card ready, their materials if they want to hand them out, their spiel, their pitch, and they're just honed and ready looking for someone to be a prospect. And when I go to a meeting like that, I care about you written on my head rather than the salesperson. And I don't really go in there trying to make a pitch or sell. In fact, I avoid it because what I want to do is get to know Brandon. I want to understand you, what you do. And by putting the attention on you versus me, I form relationships that later on you'll want to tell me about you, and you'll want to confide and ask me about me. That's part of that whole concept of self-disclosure and reciprocity. So when I go to an event like that, I do the very opposite. I don't sell. In fact, I connect. And what I hope to connect with is someone who's not only fit for a relationship with me, but also someone who is a social connector. If you've read much about Malcolm Gladwell's writings in his books, the connector concept is real important. And the connector is somebody who collects friendships and relationships, like some people cannot collect baseball cards or antiques or something. And they know everybody, and everybody knows them. Well, when you can meet somebody at a networking event who's a connector, and you can connect with them, you open up the opportunity to help a numerous number of people. So I don't go into those events trying to sell anything. In fact, that's the last thing I want to do. If you've been to an event where you're talking to someone and their eyes are drifting over your shoulder and they're looking for that next person that they could target, and you really know they're not really paying any attention to you, right? And so you're just kind of like, okay, here we go again. Well, I want to focus on you, Brandon, not the other people. And when I'm talking to you, I want to give you 100% of my attention, and I want to find a way to connect with you. Now, when you're ready to move on, you'll send me a signal of some kind. It could be looking around or whatever it might be. And I'm going to be a very important observer of people. And that's really a critical part of sales, is not being a salesperson. In fact, I tell people my book isn't about sales. It's about how not being too salesy. I don't mean pushy. Okay. I don't mean, I'm not talking that term, although it is, you've always met the salesperson who's pushy, right? Oh, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about my business, and they haven't even asked a word about you yet. They barely got your name, and you're sure they don't remember it. Okay. So it's the opposite of that. And that's why I call it the reverse sales process.
I love this methodology, this take on it too. But you're also talking about principles that are psychological. I mean, there's a lot at play here. It's not just being good at conversation. So unpack this for me from the psychological perspective.
Yeah.
What is going through your mind when you're talking with somebody, networking and building relationships?
Well, when I was doing my master's work in psychology, I had to write a paper for my end of the degree program. I had discovered a concept called self-disclosure and reciprocity by a psychologist named Sidney Girard. And Gerard was a psychotherapist who wrote about the process of getting to know patients, getting patients to disclose, getting them to tell you what their problems are. And I said, is there a relationship between this concept and business? I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is get to know Brandon well enough that you will share with me your needs, your problems, your concerns, and then I can solve that problem. And as a result of solving that problem, you like me, you connect with me, and you depend upon me. Okay. And that's really the heart of really selling is so getting someone to disclose. And so Gerard basically said to the other person, when he wrote this, the other person, we are a mystery. They don't know what we might say or what we might do, and therefore they remain on guard when they're in our presence. So in essence, everybody wears a mask. Okay. Now you have a very thin mask on, Brandon. I can tell from the minute we started talking, you're a very giving, you're a confident person, but some people have a pretty thick mask on and they don't remove the mask easily. Okay. So self-disclosure reciprocity is about sharing enough of you to make the other person feel comfortable to drop or remove the mask. And that ties into a third concept called the onion skin theory of interpersonal communications. And that if you picture an onion and the outer layer of the onion is that communications of how are you this morning? Good to see you. This is what you see at these networking events. Hey, it's good to see you, Brandon. I'm looking for another person because I know you're not going to be a buyer. Okay. Well, I don't want to do that. Okay. So I want to really focus on you and I want to tear away the outer layers of the onion and peel it back so that you're willing to share with me. And that's part of this concept of removing the mask. And so what interpersonal communications concept of self-disclosure reciprocity is, if I can remove the outer layer of the onion, if I can get you to remove the mask and allow me to see you and you to see me, I can create liking. Because it's very difficult to have someone like you if they don't know you. Okay. But I've really got to get you to reciprocate with disclosures. And so my book is a lot about psychology because this need to reciprocate when disclosed to is not a choice. It's a psychological need people have that when disclosed to reciprocate with similar disclosure. So if I tell you about my family and my pet, my cute little dog, if you have a dog and you have a family, you're probably going to reciprocate. And if I tell you about what I do to help clients solve problems, you might reciprocate by opening up and sharing a problem with me. And that allows me an opportunity to help solve problems for you. So I'm a problem solver and primarily a problem solver. And when you help somebody solve a problem, what do? You create trust in a relationship because you help me with something. Okay. If I come across as just wanting to sell you something, you're not only going to keep the mask up, you're going to push me away because you don't want to be sold to. You want to be related to and connected with.
Yeah. So when you're talking about peeling away someone's mask and also disclosing about yourself, how do you make sure you don't cross that line? Because we've all talked to people who come up to you and immediately third sentence is how their grandma died 3 years ago. And you're like, what are we even talking about?
Yeah.
That's way too much on the first date. And then also the other side of that is asking about them. How do you make it not feel like an interrogation?
Yeah.
Where do you find that balance?
Yeah, there's an interesting concept called the passing stranger effect. And this is similar to what you're talking about. When you meet someone in a bar, a restaurant, a sporting event, and you're never going to see them again, you would tend to be more disclosing because you have no fear. Okay. But when someone comes up to you and starts disclosing too much personal information, there's something called a retreat mechanism. And that's where you were doing. You were saying, oh, no, I'm going to retreat from this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know about your marriage. I don't want to know about what happens, bad things that happen to you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not ready for that. But once you peel away the onion a little bit, and once you really connect with someone, Once you talk about things that are of interest to them, not you, and you don't get too personal and they start peeling away, before long, they really are. So the passing stranger effect is a guy in a bar and he says to the guy sitting next to him, I hate my wife. The guy says, oh my gosh, why? And he says, well, he starts telling his story. And the guy listens because there's no fear. They're never going to see each other again. That's why it's called the passing stranger effect. And it's amazing how many people will share very detailed information about their lives. And I'm sure this may have happened to you. You know, when a lady goes to the hairstylist and the hairstylist starts talking to her, next thing you know, they're sharing all kinds of information, right? But because they're not worried about being hurt, they're not worried about that. So what Gerard basically said was, when you have a patient who's in a very dire situation and the psychotherapist discloses, the patient gradually reciprocates with similar disclosures until the mask is removed and the onion is peeled, and then they trust, and then they can relate, and then the patient is willing to explain to the psychotherapist why they have a problem, what they're feeling, what their needs are, and the psychotherapist can help them. Well, I took the very concept in this master's thesis that if you applied that to business, would it also work? And so what I said was, yes, as long as you don't disclose too quickly, and as long as you disclose appropriately, okay? And then you peel away the onion a little bit at a time. You certainly wouldn't cut the onion in half and go straight to the core, right? Which is what you were describing, okay? You would peel away the onion so that the relationship develops gradually over time. So in this reverse sales concept that I talked about, it was one of the chapters in my book, I talk about you go to that meeting and you don't talk about yourself and you don't disclose a whole lot of information, just enough to build a relationship. And then you follow up by calling Brandon back and saying, hey, Brandon, I met you at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. You remember me? And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember you. You were all interested in me. And then you say, well, listen, I'd like to learn more about you and your business. How about if we meet for tea or coffee at the Starbucks or whatever, and let's just get to know each other better. And he goes, well, I'm not afraid of you because you didn't try to sell me, and I'm not expecting you to come in, start throwing your pitch at me, okay? Your highly honed and practiced sales pitch. And so that allows you to get together and start building relationship, and that's how you connect with someone who's a connector, who knows a lot of people and can refer a lot of people to you. And whether you ever do business with me or not, if I can connect with you and have you remember me and think about me when you're talking to your friends, then I create a marketing phenomenon where you might refer me from someone from your network of people. And that can build a relationship. And of course, when you do, I make sure to call you up and say, hey, Brandon, really appreciate the referral. What can I do for you? Okay. How can I help you? And that's how relationships are built. And that's why if I put it, how was I successful in real estate? It was all about relationships, trust. I know that word fiduciary relationship is a very important word. And in real estate, it's an essential understanding of the fiduciary relationship that I have with you. When you know without a doubt that you can trust me and that I'm going to do what's in your best interest, not in the best interest of me, how much money I make, whatever it is. I want you to trust me to the point that you say, I know without a doubt he's going to put my best interest at heart. And that's one of the fundamental rules in real estate, the fiduciary relationship with the client, a relationship of trust and confidence. And that's what you want to do to be successful in real estate and a lot of other professional services businesses.
Yeah, really most businesses you can apply that philosophy to. I'm curious too, a relationship is an active thing. I have a relationship with my wife. I have a relationship with my business partner. I talk to them quite frequently. I'm not advocating that you do that with everybody you meet, but what is your sort of cadence or best practices to, you meet this super connector at an event, or you meet someone you may want to do business with in a couple of years. How frequent is enough, or maybe even a little bit more than enough, to sustain and actually build that relationship with, again, not selling, just building relationship?
Well, you've asked a great question there, and it's much more complicated. I hope if I don't go too long, you'll tell me, okay? But client management programs, okay? A client management program is basically saying, once I meet Brandon and I connect with him, I'm gonna find a way to manage the relationship such that you don't forget me.
Hmm.
Now, that may be me sending you a card saying, Brandon, thank you for having me on your podcast. It was great to get to know you. Okay. And then following up with you later and saying, what reaction did you get from the podcast? And then following up with you later, is there any way I can help you further? Always putting the emphasis on, I want to be there for you. You know, most professional services companies are about providing professional services to help someone. Shouldn't be about, I want to sell you an insurance policy. It should be, how do I help you? How do I help you solve a problem? How do I help you be more successful? Whatever the case might be. But when I put the emphasis on you, not me, it changes the relationship completely. And so again, not selling, not being the person who pounds on the table and says, hire me, you know. I don't want someone to feel that this discomfort. By the way, most real estate agents are similar, aren't they? I mean, most real estate agents, you think of a real estate agent as someone wants to sell you a home or help you sell their home or, you know, something like that. You think of clients, most real estate agents, as being similar. And we don't want that. We want to be different, because differentiation is a very important concept. There are 1,520,000 real estate agents that are affiliated with NAR, National Association of Realtors. There's 3 million real estate agents in the United States. Okay. Now, 3 million real estate agents for a population of 330 million. You take that and divide 3 million and 330 million, and then you consider that not everybody wants to buy a house or sell a house. Particularly if you bought one last year, you don't plan to buy another one for 5 to 7 or maybe even 10 years. So how do you stay in a relationship with someone for 5 to 7 or 10 years if you don't put them first and what their needs are first? Because they don't need you at that moment. The social conditioning says, if you're familiar with the term social conditioning,
Yes.
basically people become accustomed to a conditioning. They become accustomed to a practice of how things are done. Most people think of a real estate agent as, well, you need a real estate agent now because you need to sell or buy a home or an investment property or whatever the case might be. I need to get me an agent. I need to go out and solve my problem by finding a home, a place to live, or selling my existing home. And when it's over, the agent kind of goes away. That's social conditioning. What I want to do is not do that. I don't want them to get to the end of the transaction. And that's why I use the term. The relationship with the client must survive closing. Whether that's real estate or that's issuing an insurance policy or a financial plan or whatever the professional service is. When you get to the end of the day, the social conditioning is that I got what I needed, I'm gone, he's gone. No, he's still there and he's still trying to find ways to help me. And he's not pushing me to buy another house. And he's not hounding me with endless messages of, I sold another house today. I listed another property today. You know, you don't make those sales messages all the time. You find a way to communicate with the client on things that are important to them that they need, not things that you're trying to do to sell something. And that's the relationship that you create with them is totally different. It's a totally different relationship than the salesperson saying, I want to sell you another house. I'm not ready to sell, Sonny. I love this house. Quit sending me information about buying a house. Okay. I know you're good. I know you sell a bunch of property. So quit sending me all these notices about how many homes you sold last month, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, in this conversation, obviously we're talking about, this applies to so many businesses, almost every business. Well, I'll just put a stake in the ground. Every business is about relationships. Doesn't mean it's always with your customer. Could be with strategic partners, vendors, whatever. But it's such an important conversation. But this one about realtors in particular, I'm thinking about, my last one and my current one. I and my wife is the same way. We love our last real estate agent. We bought 2 houses and sold a house with him. Unfortunately, he's in New Jersey. That's where we're from. He still stays in touch with us, texts us for Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays. And I'm like, Joe, I love you. I can't do anything for you except send you referrals. Why are you staying in touch? He's like, you're a good friend at this point. You're a good relationship to have.
Well,
And he lives by this principle. So if anybody's in New Jersey needs a realtor, please reach out to me. I will refer to you to one.
and you know, you never know when something happens. You get an
Right.
opportunity. But going back to this client management program, if you take client management concepts from a corporate perspective, okay, when you have an account in a corporate that is maybe there's 200, maybe there's 50 decision makers. And in those 50 decision makers, maybe there's 8 people that are big, high quality decision makers that run the company, basically. Now, if you position yourself across and up and down that structure, okay, you open up all kinds of referral networks and opportunities. Well, look at the person, the client, Brandon, for a minute. You've got family, you've got relatives, you've got friends, you've got college contacts, you've got sphere of influence people. The fact that I'm talking to you as a person who's got all these contacts, and if I do a great enough job for you, you want to help me. And in fact, you look for ways to help me because I try to help you. Okay. And that's what it's all about. So a client management program basically takes concept of corporate life and applies it to a family. So Brandon is a key contact, but someone else in your family is also a contact. And someone else in your sphere of influence is also a contact. So from knowing you, I might have 20 people in my CRM. And those 20 people, some of them might live in New Jersey because those friends you met while you lived in New Jersey probably still listen to you and you probably stay in touch with, especially the really good friends. And so if I'm talking to one of them and they say, well, I don't know why I would choose you over someone else, I'd say, well, do you know Brandon? They go, oh, yeah, well, I was his agent. Boom, I'm in. So the client relationship, the client management program in a business, even a small business like professional services companies, which are typically not huge corporations with a whole big group of people, but it's the same theories and concepts. Key decision makers are key decision makers, and influencers are influencers, and they can influence others to do business with someone. Okay.
Yeah. No, Sonny, I love this conversation. We could go on for hours about this because it's so important. It's so foundational to running a successful business, but we don't have that kind of time. But I think you dropped some knowledge bombs here for the listeners. Where can someone go to learn more about you and get a copy of your book too?
Well, my book is it's a 300-page textbook.
Wow.
It's not a typical real estate book. It's in color. It's a hardback. It is a book that takes you quite a bit of time to read. Realestatebook.org is my book website. However, it's also on Amazon and a lot of other retailers. So you can go there and get it. If you order from realestatebook.org, I'll send a signed copy to you. Okay. It's also, I have a channel on YouTube called at AREP, Architecture Real Estate Practice, AREP 2023. And you can go there. You can also just go on YouTube or any of the channels and look me up because I've got probably 20 hours of content on the internet right now. And then, of course, you can go to my real estate website at sonnymoyers.com. And then LinkedIn. I've got about 8,000 people on LinkedIn that I'm connected with. So if you, I'd love to connect with you, Brandon, on LinkedIn. I think that's a very important thing because it's across the world, you know, and getting to know people all over the world is really important because that's just good business. Okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sonny, I'm shocked that you have so many connections on LinkedIn. That doesn't seem like you.
Well, you know, I try to help people, and you can't help people if you don't know them.
I hear you. No, this is awesome. I appreciate that. For those of you watching, listening, wherever you are, all of those links are down below in the show notes, in the description down below. So make sure you go check those out. Sonny, thank you so much for being here. This was a great episode.
Very enjoyable experience. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and help your audience, and I hope they learn from this program.
I'm sure they did. Drop your comments down below wherever you're watching and listening. And of course, subscribe. We love having you here. We love putting these episodes out every single day of the week to help you grow your business, not just grow your business, build a more harmonious business and life. That's what we're all about. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for being here.